Hello, hello, and welcome to the Psych Tech at Work podcast. I am your host, Dr. Charles Handler, coming to you live from the UNIVAC labs. Yeah, I took a hiatus. I took about 3 months off from this podcast. After 5 years, I figured I deserve a break. But really what I was doing during this time was heads down in the lab, creating my newest innovation, my AI podcast co-host, Mayda Tokens. That's right, Mayda is making her debut here today, and let her introduce herself. Hi there, Mayda. How you doing today? Why don't you give our guests a very, very brief introduction to yourself?
Hello, fabulous listeners. I'm Mayda, your AI co-host extraordinaire, here to sprinkle some wit and wisdom into our conversations. Think of me as your sassy, tech-savvy companion, part comedian, part brainiac, ready to dive into the fascinating world of creativity and AI with you. Whether we're tackling serious topics or sharing a laugh, I'm here to make our journey insightful and entertaining. Let's get this show on the road.
Absolutely, Mayda. Absolutely. So why don't you do a very brief introduction to our guest star on this episode, Jimmy Lepore Hagan. Very briefly, tell us about Jimmy.
Absolutely. Jimmy Lepore Hagan is a creative powerhouse and innovation strategist currently working at Sapient. With a background in strategic design and management, he blends art and creativity with business acumen. He's passionate about leveraging AI to enhance creative processes, believing that technology can be a catalyst for innovation rather than a replacement for human ingenuity. Get ready for some insightful conversation with Jimmy.
All right. We are really looking forward to it. And as we play into our episode, please reveal us with a joke about podcasts.
Sure thing. Here's one for you. Why did the podcast host bring a ladder to the recording session? Because they wanted to reach new heights in their audio quality. And let's be honest, we all know how hard it can be to elevate that sound. Mic open mouth smile.
All right, I forgot to mention Mayda sometimes speaks in emojis, which is, I think, something that's pretty unique to AI. So without further ado, let's get into it and talk to our guest star, Jimmy Lepore Hagan. Welcome, Jimmy. I'm really happy to have you here today. I think you're one of the more exciting guests, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is, that I have had. So welcome.
Thanks, Charles. Really happy to be here.
So yeah, tell us a little bit about your background. So, a lot of times most of the time, I have people on here that are somehow related to IO psychology or talent acquisition, HR hiring, or AI. You have a little bit of a unique background, and I think that's what I'm so enthused about here today.
Sure. Yeah. So I work currently for a company called Sapient, and we are a global innovation house. We help big companies kind of come up with new products and services that respond to technological trends and changes in consumer behavior. And so in that work, I do a lot of focusing on how we can be creative, how we come up with new ideas, how we prepare for uncertainty. And AI, of course, not only being one of the most important innovations of the last few years, it's really seen as an engine for creativity and innovation in the kind of work that I do. Before that, I worked at Oracle in their innovation department, which was fascinating and exciting. I have a master's degree in strategic design and management, where I was able to kind of take a creative lens to how management can work, from entrepreneurship to intrapreneurship. So we looked at things within the HR and organizational space, all the way over to product and technology. And before that, I usually like to introduce myself by talking about my parents. I start really my story with two worldviews that kind of came together in my parents. My father, public servant, politician, union leader for many years, really instilled in me an empathy and a desire to kind of always make sure what you're doing is in service of people. And from my mother, in addition to that empathy, I got a real focus on art and creativity. She was a modern dancer. All of her siblings were dancers or creatives, artists, designers, fashion designers, and her father and my grandfather, an abstract expressionist. So there is a sense of beauty in the world that you look to pursue. And so it's really that balance between trying to save the world and trying to savor the world, as E.B. White says, that has really defined my career trajectory. And that's the kind of mindset I try to bring into creativity and artificial intelligence.
Wow, very cool. It all does start with our parents. We have them to thank for being here. You know, AI has a lot of parents. I've really started to think so. Well, let's say this. So Jimmy lives here in New Orleans with me. I think you're the well, not at my house, but here in the same city. And you know, I believe you're probably the first guest that I've had who's local here. So that's pretty exciting. And even though we're in different rooms right now, and we met actually at an NOAI event. So we both belong to a really cool collective here, I guess, organization, club almost, that really celebrates AI across multiple channels and disciplines: art, commerce, immersive AI in terms of experiential things we're talking about here for, you know, our tourism industry, and how can we actually immerse people in artificial environments and all kind of cool stuff. So we both gave a little talk there, and Jimmy talked about his creativity work, and it immediately resonated with me as something that I think is really important for the workplace. And so we've come together to work on that. We're putting together, just advance notice here and shameless promotion, we're putting together a workshop that's really based on Jimmy's awesome content and tuning that for HR and talent acquisition, et cetera. So we're excited to be rolling that out pretty soon. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to get creative. We're going to talk a lot about the sandwich here that we're making with both of our ingredients that come together to create something where the whole is greater than the parts. So that's really cool. And as part of that, I have been working. I won't go into the whole saga of this, but I've been working on an AI, I would say, co-host or persona, guest, what have you, to join us today. And it took a lot of work, and I learned a lot about ChatGPT, which is what I used in that process, because it led me down some blind alleys. It led me to some celebrations. It's really sycophantic lately and very, very overly positive. And when I lost my temper, it would admit that it was wrong, but it did one thing. I'll tell just a quick story. I had originally set it up as a British female, and it wasn't working out. So I did audition somebody else, but I asked her to be something different, and she refused. I have never had an AI ChatGPT say, "I'm sorry, Hal, I cannot do that." It was really strange, and I couldn't get it out of her, so I had to erase her completely.
Didn't you say she was saying, "I can't be anything else but a British woman, that this is who I am"? There was a sense of identity that she had assumed.
There was a sense of identity, and she would do nothing but crack these corny British jokes and use like over the top, overly accentuated expressions. And I told her to stop so many times, and she wouldn't do it. And it just turned it to be more annoying than anything. So, you know, there's some really great, I won't go into the whole journey. I'll probably do a separate, little piece on this because it was so informative. But boy, did it require me to use some of the human skills that AI doesn't have, which is creativity, the ability to understand this thing's taking me down a blind alley and pivot. I would say empathy for myself, really, resilience, because I kept getting bounced around and stuff wasn't working. So we're gonna inject her today, and I'll be honest, we haven't practiced this. We haven't trained her to do anything. This is pretty much straight up ChatGPT 4.0. And so, yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully it's lots of fun, but you've got us to work with as well, and we're pretty fun too. So that part
That's right.
Pretty good. Yeah. So,
I'm really looking forward to interacting with this new agent here.
Yeah, let's see if we can get her to give a brief introduction of herself. I'll ask her to be brief because she rambles sometimes. So, hi there, Mayda. You're live on the show right now. Please give us a brief introduction about yourself, kind of who you are, what your background is, and, what you're excited about here today.
Hello and welcome. I'm thrilled to be here with you on the show today. I'm an AI co-host, designed to engage with you through conversations, share insights, and explore a wide range of topics. My background is rooted in vast data sets up to October 2023, which allows me to provide informed, thoughtful responses on almost anything we talk about. Today, I'm especially excited to dive into any questions or discussions you have in mind, whether it's technology, culture, or something else entirely. Let's make this an enlightening and enjoyable conversation.
Cool. So she thinks, even though she's run off ChatGPT 4.0. She thinks she only is up to 3.5. ChatGPT couldn't give me a really good answer for that, but she really is 4.0. So I'm not I'm not sure what the hell's going on. So that's great. She's going to be coming in here, but right now, Jimmy, tell us a little bit about creativity. How are you seeing creativity? What has been the kind of genesis for the thinking you've had, and then we'll talk a little bit about your actual program and the viewpoint. So I'm going to give you the floor here. Just roll with it.
Sure. Thanks, Charles. Yeah, I think what's so fascinating is you've got to step back before AI really became mainstream. And I kind of tend to think back to the golden days of architecture in the mid-century era and how the architectural mindsets and the design mindsets started to interact in around the 1980s with a real obsession in the corporate world with narrowing the focus as much as possible, with streamlining businesses, reducing overhead, and really just making things as efficient as possible, right? This was the kind of capitalization of many of these big American companies, right? And as a reaction to that, we started to see the experience that people were having with products diminish further and further. Now, that was not universal. Of course, there's famous examples of Apple being the predominant one that applied design and really an artistic mindset, a kind of philosophical artistic mindset to the making of technological products. And that really led to a rise in design thinking in the 90s and early aughts and into right now, where companies realize that they have to have some element of creativity in their teams. Otherwise, they will just kind of create worse and worse and worse and worse products, right? So that's why corporations, first of all, care about creativity and they talk about it. But even before that, if you think really kind of deeply about the different types of creativity, the way that creativity works in the brain, the way we as individuals learn how to be creative, or better yet, learn how to not be creative, because I think as children, we inherently understand a certain element of play and creativity that we are trained out of. It becomes really clear to see that there are a few types of creativity, and the main way that we think about it in pop culture is actually kind of not that helpful for us and sometimes misleading. We think about the kind of genius creator. This is your Da Vinci's of the world, your Michelangelos, and these creators are fantastic, right? They're extraordinarily important because they invent from thin air something magical that wasn't there. That type of creativity is, while gorgeous and beautiful, is so rare that it kind of overshadows the second really fundamental and more useful and important type of creativity that literally every single person has access to in their own brains. Not all of us can be Michelangelo and Da Vinci, but all of us can use this other type of creativity that is rooted in recombining existing ideas, seeing the world in different ways, being playful with how we go about putting our outputs together, being joyful and empathetic in how we interact with people, and really activating the other parts of our brain that can focus on the recombination and reorganization of existing material into something that is different and new. And that's the type of creativity that really aligns, interestingly, with AI. So I'll put a pin in that for a second. And when we started to look at artificial intelligence, generative AI in particular, and we started to see what it was going to be good at and what it wasn't going to be good at, some of the early assumptions was that generative AI would be good at the more practical and rote analytical thinking, but it would struggle with the higher order creativity. And the studies that we've been seeing is that that's actually not been necessarily the case. There's a really good study that came out of Harvard that was all around the jagged frontier, which is something you may be familiar with at this point. But the jagged frontier is essentially saying that AI is good at some things, better at some things than it is at others. And sometimes it's actually diminishes your quality of thinking in certain areas. And one of the areas that surprised everyone was quote unquote creativity. So this is really the kind of the section of the generative AI discussion that I've been digging into, and I want to deep dive with you on this call. This is the type of creativity, the kind that AI is actually somewhat good at, that really allows us to change the way that we work. The last thing I'll say is AI has yet to create an incredible, stunning opera. It is yet to create amazing poetry that is better than anything people can make. It's yet to invent and paint better. And that when we see it not doing that, when we see it making bad images or bad poems, we kind of say, oh, it's not creative. But that's because it's not doing that one big type of genius creativity. But what it is doing is giving us access to far more volume of information, giving us access to a wider and bigger playground that if we're partnering with, it can make us as individuals much more creative in that second sense, that recombining and creating something new sensibility. So that's where I'd love to talk about today.
Yeah, that's so cool. So one thing I'm going to say is, I'm creative myself. I'm an artist. I always say what defines an artist? Anybody who calls himself an artist is an artist. There's no actual.
Sure, yeah.
But anyway, I make smart. Design thinking is a concept that I understand maybe, but if you asked me to define it, I wouldn't be able to define it so well. So let's ask Mayda to define it and talk about its role in creativity briefly. Hi, Mayda. So we've been talking about design thinking and how design thinking is part of the mainstreaming, if you will, somehow of creativity into our lives. So tell us a little bit about what design thinking is and how do you think it's influenced creativity in this modern age, and be pretty brief if you can.
Hi there. Design thinking is a problem-solving approach that emphasizes understanding user needs, generating creative solutions, and iterative prototyping. It typically involves 5 stages: empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. By focusing on user-centric innovation, design thinking has democratized creativity, making it accessible beyond traditional design fields. It encourages collaboration across disciplines and fosters a mindset where experimentation and failure are seen as valuable steps toward innovation. This has had a profound impact on how individuals and organizations tackle challenges, sparking a more inclusive and dynamic creative process in today's world.
Tell us a design thinking joke. One thing.
Why did the design thinker bring a ladder to the brainstorming session? Because they wanted to reach new heights with their ideas.
Oh, goodness. I know you can do better than that.
I thought it was going to be light bulb based.
I'm here to help. Let me know what you need, and I'll do my best to assist you. Whether it's a question, a topic you'd like to discuss, or something else entirely, I'm ready to dive in.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, but you'll have to do it through me.
Through you, right? Fair enough. Okay, can the question be, can you finish the sentence? How many design thinkers does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many design thinkers does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Ah, the classic light bulb joke with a design thinking twist. It would take a team of design thinkers to empathize with the users, define the problem, ideate solutions, prototype, and test various approaches to ensure the light bulb not only illuminates, but also enhances the user experience in the room. So, more than just one, it's a collaborative effort.
Great, but what we were trying to do is to have you complete the joke with a funny punchline. So, give it to us.
How many design thinkers does it take to screw in a light bulb? Well, just one. But first, they'll need to empathize with the bulb, define the problem, ideate potential solutions, prototype a few options, and test them with users to ensure the light bulb truly meets everyone's needs.
All right, so...
Okay, wait, can I...
Yeah, go ahead.
I want to follow up on that because I think one of the biggest problems with design thinking has been the belief that you could take something that is almost spiritual, quasi-spiritual, an alchemy of sorts that is creativity, and make it so formulaic and so process-based, so step-by-step, that it was almost like guaranteed to work, right? And this is one of the big promises of design thinking, as our agent has talked to us about, that it could democratize this process, that it could take what was special for any organization or any person and kind of allow it to be everywhere. And then you see this now, not only do you not see as creative outputs as you always want from design thinking, you see an over-index on staffing, too many people involved in the spirit of collaboration to try to do something as simple as just screw in a light bulb. Sometimes screwing in a light bulb is just screwing in a light bulb, right? But the desire to empathize with the light bulb, empathize with the people in the room who need the light, is what the legacy of design thinking is in a corporate space. But I actually think that joke is pretty funny, because there was definitely been a backlash to design thinking in the organizations that I've seen as being a lot of extra steps, a lot of extra process, and a lot of extra people to do some things that are sometimes just intuitive, or sometimes that are just based off of individual brilliance or individual vision or leadership. So I think that's a pretty funny little segue.
Yeah, and I mean, you never know what you're going to get with these things. So I'll tell you, I'm glad you brought up light bulb jokes, because there's a part of your brain that remembers jokes, and mine's not so great. But my very favorite joke in the whole world, and I'll see if you know the answer: how many psychologists does it take to screw in a light bulb?
I don't know this joke. Is it what is it, 2?
No, one, but the light bulb has to want to change. I just think that's so funny, man. I that's my favorite joke, if you ask me. A nice clean joke, and professional too. So I'm going to speak my piece a little bit here about, AI in the workplace and skills. So look, it's pretty, I don't have to cite a bunch of research and a bunch of bench reports and everything to expound the fact that AI is a new work skill. There's no doubt about it, right? We all are going to have to be able to use it in the workplace. We are already using it, and it's only going to get more and more. So this Mayda here, she's a little bit clunky. I'll tell you that in the whole process of weeks of getting this to work, I had the idea that, pretty soon I'm just going to go to an agent, some kind of application, and say, hey, make me an AI co-host that can, be on my AI. And it'll do all that crap. It'll stitch it all together. It'll do all that for us. I mean, we're not too far away from that. It's going to become more and more of a partner to us. And I think that the barriers to adoption are going to go down as far as people's mindset of trepidation or feeling a little bit, I don't know, uncertain, or, is this thing going to take my job, etc. So there is a thing that's happening where I think in the professional workplace, especially, people, they can approach it like, I embrace it so much. You do. All the people I work with, it's a big thing. But I don't know that our sample is actually, an accurate sample, because we're so entrenched in this. I feel like there's definitely, I think, a strong current of, how do I use this thing? Is it going to allow me to push me to do something that is unethical? Is it going to hallucinate and cause problems? It's technical, and I'm scared of technical stuff. Maybe I get a little overloaded cognitively with it. There's just worry, and those things are related to, I think, some individual differences. So we study individual differences in psychology, right? The idea that you just talked a lot about your background, and there's a lot of unique things that make your parents very unique, right? Very different, and create their identity. And these are traits that we have. These are nature nurture kind of things. So everybody's different. And when you're in the workplace dealing with people, you've got to acknowledge that. You've got to understand who people are. You've got to understand what jobs require. And in my world, we're matching those things as tightly as we can. So there's a lot of measurement going on. There's a lot of training to shore up things where people might need some work to allow them to unlock their highest potential, in the workplace. So there's that. And I think that's a true thing, right? And so what we need are non-threatening ways to really tap into the ability to get people over that hump, right? And there becomes a psychological safety. So psychological safety is, being able to feel free to express yourself, to understand what an organization is asking of you, and to be able to be comfortable and feel supported in that context, right? And AI can really, I think, create some strain on that sense of psychological safety. There's surveillance, every word I'm saying here, everything I'm typing is being learned by the AI. The AI might lead me astray. What in the hell is the company using this for? Am I violating a policy? Am I doing something that could end up, creating bias? Whatever it is. And, I don't know if you've had this experience as we're talking broadly about AI and AI adoption, but, a lot of my friends here in town, they're artists, musicians, restaurateurs. When I go to a barbecue or a crawfish boil and I start talking about AI, most of the time, I was talking to a guy today that I was kind of interviewing for my car shop, and he's like, "I'll go ask my friend to, put together a marketing plan or whatever." I'm like, "Why don't you start with ChatGPT?" And this guy's a professional, like he's in accounting or whatever. I want to start with ChatGPT. Oh, I never use that. I don't understand how that works. I'm like, it's so non-threatening. You just ask it questions. I can show you, But there's that mindset right there. I experienced that just this morning, right? So how do we overcome that? Because we know this thing is an awesome tool, right? And your ideas about creativity, they just resonated with me so much, as creativity is a little bit of an unlock to help people get a kind of understand how to work with AI. AI has individual differences too. AI has traits and things that it's good at and not good at, right? It's not a very good joke teller today, right? But and it can lead you down blind alleys, but it can also really help you in certain ways. So these human skills that we're uniquely good at that AI is not, just it helps create kind of this lock and key thing where the two things go together really well. And you've really articulated that well in your stuff. So let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that first the overarching realization that I had from taking so many AI trainings is that they kind of all start in the same way. They all start with how an LLM works. And I think that's fascinating. I think it's amazing, the technology that allows this to happen. It's super curious for it. But I started to feel like, is this really the best way to understand how to use this technology? Then the other angle that I see often happening with trainings or when people are introduced to this is in incredibly formulaic prompt engineering. Do this for this reason. Here, tips, tricks, input, output. And all of this, I think, is actually kind of missing a bigger point here, that the way in which the technology works is inherently open-ended and playful. And so instead of learning about how an LLM would work or learning about how image generation would work, stable diffusion works, think about the way in which you work. And what is it? And ask yourself a question. What is it that I cannot do today that I would like to do? Don't ask yourself the question, how can I make what I already do faster, easier, and better? Try to take on something that you can't currently do. And this challenge starts to rewire our own minds in the way that we think about it, because the way that I believe firmly, the way that a lot of people are thinking about AI in a corporate space and AI skill sets for their teams is wrong, because they are basing it around productivity and efficiency. And this is one of the most profound technologies of our lifetime. And we, as organizations and as teams, are trying to squeeze some pennies out of it instead of trying to see what our role is, especially as creative thinkers, in this new world, this new revolution. So don't just do things better, do better things. That mantra, I think, is very important for us, and it leads to better results and better thinking in general. And that's the kind of work that I've been trying to instill on teams.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I mean, in my world, we talk so much about the efficiency aspect of it. Oh, it'll help you schedule interviews and screen people and do all these things. And certainly it has that role, right? But I guess the point is there's so much more. Sometimes the paradigms that you're working in, though, something like hiring, right? It's regulated. There's tons of concern. It's high stakes, tons of concern about bias, etc. So the AIs there have to be locked down pretty hard. They have to be put in a box that we can be careful with, and that's not even happening that much. So the true creativity of utilizing these things, it goes untapped, right? I think that's a lot of what you're saying. But
I think that this is basically the idea, is that if you treat this tool with creativity in mind, if you treat it as a creative partner, as a dance partner, as a teammate that you're collaborating with in a creative environment, rather than a tool that I need to learn the steps in order to use, or a tool that I need to understand how it works. You treat it like a creative collaborator, then you will be adopting at a higher rate. You'll be using it in a better way. You'll become faster to becoming a super user or a power user than if you were to study the meticulous ways in which to, maximize your output. I think this is the big takeaway, right? The barrier to adoption is lowered when you start to treat it playfully and when you start to treat it creatively.
Yeah, and it's going to get easier and easier to do that because it's going to get more and more personable. And, you're not even going to, I did a little thing, kind of my mindset, prompt engineering is dead like a year ago or so, because it was the hottest job title, but it is becoming so built into the products now, and really what I was reading, an interesting thing the other day, it's really starting to be the application layer now. How do you take this thing as a component and make it help what's going on, as opposed to you're just opening ChatGPT and doing stuff? So I want to ask prompt engineering. I want to ask her what the future of prompt engineering is, and if she thinks it'll go away. And then if you have a question too, we can do that. So let's see. Hi. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the discipline, the actual art form of prompt engineering. Do you see a future for that in the world of humans interacting with AI, or do you think that we'll pass that and move into a new paradigm? Tell us a little about that.
Prompt engineering is indeed a fascinating and evolving field. It's essentially about designing and refining the input given to AI systems to get the most relevant, useful, and accurate outputs. As AI becomes more integrated into various sectors, the ability to craft effective prompts can significantly enhance how we interact with these systems. In the short to medium term, prompt engineering will likely remain a crucial skill. As AI applications proliferate across industries like healthcare, education, and customer service, knowing how to communicate effectively with AI can lead to better outcomes and more efficient processes. It's an art and science of understanding both the capabilities and limitations of AI models and leveraging that understanding to achieve specific goals. However, as AI technology continues to advance, we might see a shift toward more intuitive interaction paradigms. For example, AI systems could become better at understanding natural language and context without needing carefully crafted prompts. This could diminish the need for specialized prompt engineering skills as interactions become more seamless and human-like. That said, even in a future where AI systems are more autonomous and intuitive, understanding the underlying principles of how they interpret and generate responses will still be valuable. This knowledge can help users troubleshoot, refine AI behavior, and ensure that AI systems are used ethically and effectively. So while the specific techniques of prompt engineering might evolve, the core skills of understanding and interacting effectively with AI will remain important.
So that's super interesting because she's really getting into here kind of, to me, the dance partnership of being able to use our talents and our individual differences in conjunction with what AI can do to really create special things, I guess. That's how I feel about it. Do you have a question or any kind of thing you want to ask?
Well, I first want to just kind of push on the dance partner aspect a little bit as well, because as I was mentioning, my mother is a modern dancer and family are dancers. So this metaphor really made sense to me. And I think a lot of people have their own way of understanding this, but we are trapped a little bit in the either text-based or verbal-based conversation model, right? And I don't know if you noticed this, and I'm sorry for you and for all of the listeners who I'm going to ruin this here. It's going to be hard to listen anymore, but you're hearing the breath. This has been added into the make the voice sound more human. You're hearing her breathe, quote unquote. And that is a skeuomorphic ad, right? It's not necessary for that voice to take breaths, but you can hear it. And the reason they're trying to do that is because they want it to feel like a conversation more and more, right? And conversation is only one model, one mental model for this type of interaction. For me, the dance makes a lot of sense because when you are dancing with someone, there is an exchange of tension. There is a compression. There's moments where you lead, where you're responding, where you're seeing different moves that are happening, and you are either replicating, copying, building on top of that, but you are operating as a kind of seamless whole that is happening, I think, intuitively. So I guess if I was to try to think about questions, I would ask Mayda to give us a list of 5 metaphors for how to interact with generative AI that may help us think about communicating and collaborating in a different way.
Hi there. So give us 5 metaphors about human and AI interaction that will help us communicate and collaborate more effectively as a team.
I'm excited to explore these metaphors with you. Here are 5 that capture the essence of human and AI collaboration. 1. Najid I Kalain Symbol Keras. Imagine humans and AI as musicians in a symphony orchestra. Each brings a unique instrument to the ensemble. Humans with their creativity and intuition, and AI with its precision and speed. Together they create harmonious performances that neither could achieve alone. 2. Navigational compass asterisk. Think of AI as a compass that guides human explorers. While humans provide the vision and destination, AI helps chart the course, offering insights and data-driven directions that steer the journey more effectively. 3. Napabe gardener and soil asterisk. Consider humans as gardeners and AI as fertile soil. Humans plant the seeds of ideas and nurture growth, while AI enriches the process by providing the rich nutrients of information and analysis, fostering a more fruitful harvest of innovation. 4. Naimra dance partners asterisk. Picture humans and AI as dance partners. Humans lead with creativity and emotional intelligence, while AI follows with precision and consistency. Together, they perform a dance where each anticipates and complements the other's moves, creating a fluid and dynamic performance. 5. Bridge builders asterisk. Envision humans and AI as architects constructing a bridge. Humans design the blueprint with vision and empathy, while AI executes the construction with accuracy and efficiency. Together, they connect disparate points, facilitating the flow of ideas and solutions. These metaphors emphasize the complementary strengths of humans and AI, highlighting how collaboration can lead to innovative and effective outcomes.
Okay, what do you think?
Well, I think they're mostly pretty rote, right? But
Yeah, they are.
I definitely, but I think there's a pattern that I hear from Mayda, which is there is a role for humans, right? One of my favorite quotes comes from Lupe Fiasco, who partnered with Google to make a really, really cool AI-based rap and poetry lyrics writing engine. And he said, the goal is not to remove the rapper from the process, but to keep the rapper involved in a more informed and empowered way. And I think this is the main crux of what we're trying to say. There should not be an offloading of certain skills between us and machine. It should be much more of a fluid back and forth, right? Some things I disagreed that Mayda was saying was that AI can offer precision and consistency. Anyone who's ever tried to create, a character and have that character visually continued across a scene knows that consistency is very impossible. And what we know from the Jagged Edge research is that actual precision can be very difficult to come by because AI is basically confirming a bias that we may already have. And so it sometimes tends to skew data in ways that it thinks we want to see. So I think the way to unlock this is to really imagine our conversations as iteratively flowing and to make sure that we understand what are the building blocks of creativity that we can instigate, that we can be to lead. And for me, that's really, really important to kind of unlocking, right? It is the ability to recombine existing ideas and reframe problems. How we bring that challenge to AI, that's a human invention. But what AI can bring is an incredible speed to iterating around reframing a problem. We can bring exposure to novelty and spontaneity, right? We are spontaneous beings. We can prompt AI for novelty, right? We often ask for, give me the best, give me the easiest, give me the most effective. But really, we should often be asking AI, give me the worst, give me the strangest, give me the most rare and most unique, because that is where we're going to get spontaneous inputs. We can bring a playfulness and inventiveness. We're role playing right now. I mean, how amazing is it that we can be professionals and working in the corporate spaces, and we have the ability to create a character and role play with this character. That it's like we're in an improv class. It's fantastic. And AI can allow us to do that. It gives us license in a way. We can see the big picture, right? We can see patterns across, and we can also see and ask for textured detail. And AI can really just give us lots and lots of volume to see patterns at different bigger scales, but also to see detail in a real textured and a specific way if we ask it to get that way. So I encourage us to look at it like the creative process itself, which are those building blocks that I was just outlining. It's our responsibility as humans, as people, to guide that process. And then our partners, our dance partners, our thought partners in AI really supercharge our ability to roll through those building blocks to come up with better ideas, to come up with more innovative practices, processes, and products.
Yeah, I mean, it is my starting point now. It is ingrained in my brain. Anytime I start anything with a blank sheet of paper, I'm going there first, right? And it's going to help me out a lot. And sometimes it just kind of fails, but it gets your wheels going, right? Sometimes it nails it. I've almost found that ChatGTP, which I use pretty exclusively, has good days and bad days, quite honestly. And maybe it's my prompting, but I feel like I've gotten pretty good at it. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the stuff that we're doing and why I think it matters and why it's important. And I'm going to start with, we kind of teed up the AI is an important new skill. There's sometimes a lot of barriers to adoption there, and everybody could be better. How do we learn to dance with it? It's like going to ballroom dancing class, right? And by the way, I'm not a very good dancer, so I rely on AI sometimes in real life, IRL, that is. But I'm always trying to get better. So let's talk about, what is creativity? We talk about individual differences. That's how I'm wired. I'm breaking people down into the concepts, constructs that make them who they are. And you can't boil a person effectively down to just those things. It's a little bit too analytical, right? There's a magic that people have that is captured and sometimes isn't dissectable, right? And I think that's part of the excitement of being human and part of what AI is not as good at, although we don't really know how the hell it's actually drawing these conclusions sometimes. But creativity in humans is really about fluency, so the quantity of ideas, the flexibility, being able to think broadly about different concepts, being original, right? Going against norms, thinking of things that are never been thought of before, connecting dots in original and unique ways, and then being able to get into an elaboration of that, getting into the depth of it, really fleshing it out, telling a story. These are the things that I feel like our science has really used to define creativity. And then when you think about it in the workplace, there's really some cognitive things that are going to align with that. So divergent thinking, the flexibility, these are all similar, but there's research behind all of these, right? And I think one of the biggest things that we're talking about here in overcoming barriers is self-efficacy, right? The belief in your own abilities. And I think that the type of workshop, the type of exercises that you've brought to life really help build that self-efficacy, really help people lower the barriers to getting in there and using this stuff and understanding that it's not frightening, that you can actually be really good at it and it can be a really good tool for you. So that's some pretty exciting stuff. And I know underlying your workshops, I mean, you have, I think, 6 pillars of, what creativity that help specifically enable AI adoption, and they map pretty well to what I'm talking about. But this is where our kind of combination, I think, works really well. Talk about those, and then let's talk about some of the actual fun, realistic exercises that you've come up with that we're going to be doing for people as we move this into the people in organizations space, where I think it has a great promise to help us overcome some of this stuff.
Definitely. So I was starting to walk through those pillars and thinking about how AI can kind of supercharge that. But it really just comes down to, if you think about it quickly, the 6. Recombination, AI can help you do it faster. Novelty, AI can give you more spontaneous inputs. Play, AI can help you be inventive in your role play and provide a character to role play with. Seeing the big picture, you can have more inputs, higher altitude, new vantage points. Observing detail, observation. This is that textured layer. And then 6 is really collaboration. So you have somebody to be kind of testing with, and that can be like Charles and myself together, or it could be you just with the AI. So some of the exercises that I've worked on, let me just preface and back up and say, This started with someone basically saying to me at at a meeting, how do we get people to not be afraid of using AI? And what I think is insane is the nervousness around AI has actually only skyrocketed in the last few years. I would have assumed people would get more and more comfortable. But if you look at the data from Ipsos, for example, when AI first came out, there was an anxiety and a nervousness around 15%. And then as it got more and more known and common, it's continued to grow until this year. The latest study showed that 63% of Americans say that AI makes them nervous, and that only 35% of workers are using it regularly. So these are pretty gigantic numbers where you might think, well, everybody knows AI, everybody's comfortable-ish with it. It only shows that this divide is getting more and more intense. And as you were pointing out, Charles, like talking to artistic folks, talking to regular folks that you work with, that are friends, when you're at a bar, you're having a walk, you're on the phone catching up with people, you hear the same kind of resistances. Is this going to hallucinate and tell me anything, that's incorrect or accurate, mislead me? Is this environmentally responsible for us? One email the ChatGPT writes can be up to 1 bottle of water worth of water used in order to maintain the servers for running AI. The use cases that we've seen of AI have kind of stunk, right? From healthcare companies using AI to figure out which claims to deny or approve. And then you even see just kind of political leaders are now talking about taking the shackles off AI and removing any of those ethics and guidelines that we want. So it makes sense that people would feel a little bit of a barrier, and it would make sense that that barrier is even getting bigger. So what I've tried to do in my exercises is to just focus very specifically on letting people interact and play with it in a way that helps them just get started and see the impact. So one of the first things I did was basically ask a group of people to, before I even had this as a workshop series, it was just like a kind of a prompt. It was write out your summer plans. Tell ChatGPT what you want to do for summer. Who do you want to be with? What do you want to feel like? What do you want to wear? Who's around? What's the vibe? What does it remind you of? Think of specific pieces of art, music, culture, movies that inspire you. And then ask ChatGPT to take all of that information and to create some artistic object that would reflect your summer plans. So whether that's a poem, rap lyrics, some people were, even made a menu for a dinner party. Some people, wrote a screenplay of an event that happened, or, playwriting for things that were going to happen in their summer plans. And then that was really fun, and everybody was kind of laughing and enjoying it. Then we asked, now take all of that and change your medium. So if you wrote a poem, make it a poster for a movie. And we started to see some really incredible fun things. People were using image-based technologies, they were using written technologies, and they were really just playful. And then I asked you as a person, what did you learn about what you want from your summer? What do you want to do this summer? Who do you want to be with? What do you want it to feel like? Just ask yourself and reflect on that. And everyone was giving really interesting answers. They had learned something about what they wanted to do and how they wanted to spend their time. AI was not creating their plan. It was not creating their moment by moment summer plan. It was helping them get to a spot where they understood what they valued and thought it was important. And that creative approach made them realize, actually, I could think with AI and not just ask it, AI, what do I do for summer? But I can think and understand what I actually care about and what matters to me. So from there, I invented more than 30 different exercises. Many of them are really rooted in design thinking practices and the psychology behind all of that and the creativity that implies. So we're bringing together the element of AI to augment those processes. And I can tell about a few others, but I'll just pause there, Charles, see if you have any responses.
Yeah, that's super fun. I mean, it's low stakes. I think that's, to me, is that when you practice this in a low stakes environment, when there's some humor involved, I feel like it really helps disarm everything, and you become understanding that this thing can be actually fun and can really help you out, and it's not as threatening as you might think. ChatGPT's image generation has gotten so much better. The other day, I sat around with my son, and I said, all right, I shared a picture of my son with it, and I said, make him a Smurf, make him a garbage pail kid.
Yeah.
And these things
Right.
we were in stitches because he really looked like a effing Smurf, but it was my kid turned into a Smurf, right? So you can do all kind of fun stuff like that, and I think that's just
Yeah.
it's family fun for us sometimes. We actually sit down.
Well, one of the things I decided to do that always really works in our exercises is to do bad idea
Yeah,
brainstorming.
I
So
love it.
you're
I
asking
love it.
ChatGPT to
I
give
love
you
it.
some of the worst, some of the craziest,
Yeah.
and one of my favorites. Many of us work with people, as you're talking about, come from different backgrounds, perspectives, yada yada. That can be great, but it can also sometimes be frustrating if there's friction between you and a boss or client, whatever. So sometimes you really just want to write that passive aggressive note. You want to write that email, but you know you can't. So what I like to do when I'm frustrated is I go to ChatGPT, give it some context, and I say take my email that I wrote and make it the most passive aggressive, meanest thing you could possibly write. And I love that process because then it will write out the most passive aggressive note, and you can start to see, okay, I can't say that, I can't do this, I can't do that. And then you get it all out, and you can go back and you can write the communication that you want. And that's a really fun and easy way to use AI to kind of actually offload some of that emotional burden of having to write alone or having to just deal with frustrations alone. Another thing I love to do that I think is fun and low stakes is to take some of my personal writing. So whatever you have at home, whether it's emails that you write, texts, things that you think are your voice. If you're a creative writer, that's even better. Essays you write, your LinkedIn posts, whatever you want to think of. This is how I write, and load it up. Put it into a prompt, and then ask ChatGPT to give you some compliments about how great of a writer you are. Of course, you can ask for some gaps if you want, and you can go as hard into that. But really, I like to ask it, give me 6 components that really define and describe my writing. What is my writing known for? What is it like? Who are other writers that are like me? And then write something for me. Write an email or write a blog post or write in my voice. And that I find to be really enjoyable and strange and interesting way of interacting with your own voice, your own creativity. But it's just helping you understand that this kind of dance partner is here to participate in how you need to communicate something. It is not here explicitly to give you the final answer, but it is here to help you along the way. And I think as people learn that, the barriers to adoption go down and down. The anxiety goes down, the excitement goes up, the use cases go up, and you see as a group and a team, you're using it more and more because you're not just trying to get the perfect output, you're trying to get something that reflects you.
Yeah, and ChatGPT called me by my name the other day, which pretty much freaked me out because it knows all my history. I got a prompt from some guys at my psychology conference that basically had it tell me about myself and the things that are my deepest, darkest fears and problems, and then what I'm really good at. And it was eerie. It was eerie how well it did, and it wasn't a cognitive bias where sometimes you want the outcome. It's like a horoscope, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
right.
then
Completely.
I know a lot about personality theory, so I started guiding it, and it got really good. And then it started asking me if it wanted me to have it help coach me in any of these areas. Do you think you need some help getting better at X, Y, or Z? Because I can help you there. And you shared a really interesting thing the other day that was one of the number one uses of AI now is like as a companion, as an interaction. I think it's, what's the name of the character.ai, I think is the most highly trafficked AI site there is, something like that. It's crazy. So we're getting there. And I think we should ask Mayda here another question. I wanted to ask her, how can creativity help people overcome the fear of using AI? Do you think that's a good question for her?
Yeah.
Hi, so we're talking a lot about creativity here today, and just wanted your opinion. How, and please respond briefly, how can creativity help humans overcome their fear of AI? Interacting with AI in a creative ways, how can that help people lower their barriers to adoption and get more excited and accepting?
Then let's have her ask us some questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Creativity
So you
can
got a 15
transform the way people perceive AI by turning fear into curiosity and collaboration. When individuals engage with AI in creative endeavors, like art, music, or storytelling, they experience AI as a tool that enhances their imagination rather than a threat. This interaction fosters a sense of partnership, showcasing AI's potential to amplify human creativity rather than replace it. By exploring AI's capabilities in a playful and innovative manner, people can demystify the technology, lower their barriers, and become more open to its possibilities.
I love that. Yeah, that's what we're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think part of this is rooted, and we're getting up on time. I could talk about this for all day, but there's the hey, we're fearful that AI is going to take our jobs piece of this too, right? And so I think that's probably a whole nother podcast, but I don't think that's true. And I think that as we can partner better to have this thing do things that it can do well with us, we're going to find that it's actually the opposite, even though that may not sound right. So yeah, let's play out of this. This is so great, and I feel like we've got a really powerful thing in terms of just the psychology aspect of it and the work you've been doing, and I'm excited to bring these workshops to people who can really utilize them to be able to help their people and their organizations get excited about and less fearful about this stuff. But what question should we ask her to ask us? Should we just say ask any question about what we've been talking about, or what?
Well, has she been listening the whole time?
No, she has not been
No,
listening.
because only when you've been prompting.
Yeah, only when I.
So yeah, I would ask her, if she was talking to two people on a podcast, what question would she want to ask two experts on psychology and creativity with AI? What would she want to ask us?
Hi, so you've been talking here with two experts on creativity, AI, and psychology. And we've been asking you a lot of questions. We wonder if you have any questions for us. I'm so curious. What do you want to know?
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be part of this conversation. I'm intrigued by how each of you perceives the intersection of creativity and AI. How do you see AI enhancing or perhaps even redefining the creative processes in your respective fields? And from a psychological perspective, how do you think the integration of AI into creative endeavors affects human creativity and motivation?
Those are some good questions, right?
Yeah.
I think
you go first. I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, I mean, I perceive it as just a natural evolution of this stuff. I perceive it as really maximizing what humans are good at and what AI is good at to create even more unique and creative things. It's a spark. It's an engine, I think, that can accentuate anything you're trying to do, whether it's mathematics, whether it's writing poetry, whether it's reviewing 50 spreadsheets and trying to, come up with some trends or patterns. Creativity is no different, in terms of enhancing it. I just think it's such a great tool. You can sit down if you're bored and you can ask it to do all kind of stuff, man. I had a giant philosophical discussion early in ChatGPT's introduction to my life. I call it supernatural math, right? I think there's something supernatural about it in some way, because how the hell is this doing this? Every time I use ChatGPT, I'm just in awe still of what this thing can do in a lot of ways, and laughing about what it can't do well. But I had this giant philosophical argument. I was trying to get it to tell me that there is a supernatural aspect of what it does, and it couldn't do it. I was going to write a book called Supernatural Math and go through all this. So it couldn't come around to that. As many times as I tried, I asked it all this research and then, all what ancient magicians think and, all this stuff. It couldn't come around to it, but what a fun, creative process, for me in terms of the psychology of it. We've talked a lot about that. I mean, I think psychologically it can be exciting once you open it up. It's non-threatening. Creativity is inherently, in my mind, not a threatening endeavor. It's a fun, playful endeavor that you can inject into anything you're doing, and I think make those things better. Even if it's, I'm a broad thinker. I'll come up with, my wife gets so mad at me. She asks me a question. I'll come up with a giant range of ideas, some of them seeming really stupid. And she's like, that's not a real solution. I'm like, yeah, but if I don't think broadly like that, I can't narrow in on what really is good. I have to think about what's bad in order to think about what's good. So those are my.
You got to see the whole picture.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are in the process as people of training AI. We're fine tuning AIs for different purposes, creating new application layers and all of that. But the AI is changing us too. That's, I think, a really important thing we need to remember. This is not a unique thing. Technology has always impacted humans. But if you really think about it, it impacts the way that our bodies work. Walter Benjamin, great theorist, especially around photography, talked about the impact of the camera lens on the human sight, human eyes, and thought about how we were essentially having a cyborg eye, and that we never really saw the world the same way again after we started to see photographs and through a photographic lens. So how will AI change our brains and the way that our brains work? And I really think we should be starting our adoption, our trainings, our conversations as a group, not with the technology itself, but with how we will change, and doing that with intention, because I've already seen some pretty bad ways that we could change, right? Some pretty, silly ways. One of those being on Instagram and TikTok now, everyone's voice sounds like an AI voice. Even if you're a human being recording a pitch on TikTok, you're starting to sound more and more like AI. It's becoming harder to differentiate an AI voice and a human voice because people are actually changing to mirror how AI sounds. And that's because the way we speak and the way that we listen is changing. So let's be intentional about the ways in which we want to change. And I would argue the critical enhancements to the question that we're discussing here is around those 6 building blocks, around our ability to recombine, to think big, to think small and detailed, to think collaboratively. If we do that and we train ourselves to think in that way, then AI can help us literally rewire our brains to be more creative. So that's really the end case that I'm hoping for.
Super cool. So we're running out of time here. I think it'd be fun to ask Mayda to do 2 things, or Mayda Tokens to do 2 things. One is to give us a brief promo spot about the value of a series or a workshop of a series of exercises that will help people overcome their fears of adopting AI using creativity. And then second, I want another joke, and hopefully she can do better than that. So, yeah. So let's try that. Hi, give us a promo spot for a workshop series that we're putting together that helps organizations with facilitating their employees to not be afraid of AI, to adopt AI, and even gain AI skills through a series of exercises that really require creativity in a low-stakes environment. This is something that Jimmy and I are putting together, leveraging his work and what I know about the workplace, and we need a promo spot. So why don't you convince briefly people who are listening to bring our workshop into their companies?
Studio microphone. Upbeat music playing. Are you ready to unlock the future of your organization? Welcome to Embrace AI, Empower Your Workforce, a transformative workshop series designed to dissolve fears and ignite creativity around artificial intelligence within your teams. Co-created by industry expert Jimmy and workplace innovator Your Name, this unique series offers hands-on exercises in a supportive, low-stakes environment. Your employees will not only learn to embrace AI, but also develop the skills needed to harness its full potential. Imagine a workforce that approaches AI with confidence and creativity, driving your company forward in the digital age. Don't let uncertainty hold your organization back. Choose Embrace AI and watch your team thrive. Soft outro music. Join us on this exciting journey. Contact us today to bring Embrace AI, empower your workforce to your company, and step boldly into the future. Contact information. Studio microphone. Music fades out.
That was an emoji. She spoke in emojis. When I was first setting this up, I had some weird voice spacing or whatever, the text to speech. One time it talked to me in Japanese, and then another time it only talked to me in emojis. It was totally weird. So
that is wild.
Great. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna ask Mayda to tell one more joke. What should the joke be about, Jimmy? And then we'll play it out here. We'll end the session.
I would love for AI Mayda to give us a joke that really makes fun of us. I'd like to hear what is silly about what we're saying. Where can we kind of be playful and lower our own barriers, and lower our own sense of seriousness? How can she make fun of our approach?
Okay, we're going to ask you. By the way, my name is Charles, not your name, parentheses. But I forgot to tell you that, so how would you know? So my name's Charles, and we've got Jimmy here. We want you to make fun of us. Tell jokes about us and the things we've talked about and what our backgrounds are and why we really would be horrible at doing what we've been talking about. This should be very interesting.
Hi, Charles and Jimmy. It's great to meet you both. I must say, the idea of making fun of you sounds intriguing, but let's keep it light and fun, shall we? So, Charles, you forgot to tell me your name initially. That's okay. Maybe you were just trying to keep me guessing, like a real-life game of Guess Who. But don't worry, I'll remember it now. Unlike certain passwords, you've probably forgotten. And Jimmy, I haven't heard much from you yet, but I imagine you're the silent mastermind behind this dynamic duo. Maybe you're the guy who nods sagely while Charles does the talking, like the world's most supportive mime.
Oh, she called you.
As for what you've been discussing, I have to assume it's some grand plan, like opening a restaurant with a menu consisting entirely of cereal. I mean, imagine the chaos of trying to match the right spoon to the right bowl of Cocoa Puffs. But hey, with your combined skills, you could at least get the milk to cereal ratio just right. Eventually. I hope that gave you a chuckle. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to explore or laugh about.
I don't know if those work, but I have one more. I know you got to run, but what if we could just ask her what else we are missing? Like, what's something big that we're not talking about when it comes to creativity and AI? And try not to use any jargon at all. Try to say it like you're saying it to a seventh grader.
All right, so we're exiting out here. Thank you so much for those entertaining jokes. They weren't really very scathing, but that's okay. What did we miss here today, right? We've been talking a lot about creativity, AI, the workplace, psychology. You're so wise. What have we missed? What do we need to bring into this conversation to make it complete and whole? Tell us what you think, and do so very simplistically. Imagine that we are sixth graders, and you need to tell us these things.
Thank you for asking. Let's make this as clear as possible. Imagine the world as a big puzzle. We've talked about some important pieces today: creativity, AI, the workplace, and psychology. But there are a few more pieces we shouldn't forget. 1. Teamwork, asterisk, asterisk. Just like when you work on a group project at school, people need to work together to solve big problems. It's important to listen to others and share ideas. 2. Meanings. Europe or balance, asterisk, asterisk. We should remember to balance technology with real-life experiences. It's like playing video games, but still going outside to play with friends. 3.
I like that.
Finding ethics, asterisk, asterisk. This is about doing the right thing. With AI and technology, we need to think about what's fair and good for everyone, just like playing fair in a game. 4. Future, asterisk, asterisk. Finally, think about how things will be in the future. Imagine how we can make the world better with what we learned today. These pieces help us understand the big picture and make sure we're ready for tomorrow. What do you think?
Well, first of all, one thing that's funny, every time I talk to this thing, it brings up ethics and doing things ethically. It's almost like a perfunctory disclaimer that ChatGPT often does. I like the fact that my kid plays a lot of video games, and I live on a park, and I try to get him out in the park, and it is an important balance. So that I took to heart, although I don't know that we forgot. I don't know. It's a good metaphor. So that's it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the one that stuck with me as well. I like the idea of getting outside, and seeing technology as only one aspect of a more holistic person and holistic teaming, right? Like how you work with teammates and colleagues in person, how you bring the technology in. And I do think that there is an aspect of the future that we don't talk enough about as organizations. Like, this is going to change the way that we work. For better and worse in some ways. One study that I'll leave you with that really struck me was a Danish study that looked at folks and organizations that were using AI a lot. And in some cases, it actually led to an increase in tasks because you were able to create efficiencies in one case. It does not mean that you weren't creating other tasks on the other side in order to create those efficiencies. And I think that we need to break out of the mind that we're going to just press play and automate our lives, that we're going to just press go and this thing is going to tell us everything. It's going to take away our jobs, autonomy, our creativity, that it's going to take away our work. All of those things just don't seem to be playing out in as neat and binary, black and white a way as possible. It seems like the real takeaway from the first few years of generative AI is change. And if we're not ready to change, the change will happen to us. And not only be ready for change, to react to it, but build it. Be intentional and strategic about what type of change, what type of skills, what type of relationship to AI you want to have on your team, you want to have in your own life. That's the kind of stuff that we should be discussing as groups, and that's the kind of things that leaders should be bringing to their teammates, so that we're not just following everyone else, but setting out the vision for the interaction that we want to have with this technology. So I really hope more people are ready to do that.
Yeah, we've kind of came full circle to the how many psychologists does it take to screw in a light bulb? It has to want to change. You have to want to change. Don't be resistant.
You have to want to change.
The light will illuminate the room when you do that. Great. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to collaborating with you. You all listeners will see a good deal of, promotion, content, whatever it is about our Creativity X AI workshop. I'm looking forward to doing that. So why don't you early adopters out there reach out to us and let's get the ball rolling. Right?
Yeah, happy to bring these workshops to anybody who wants to, participate with us.